to one and all. I take this opportunity to welcome you all at the plenary session of the 3rd Doctoral Colloquium 2021, organized by St. Xavier's University, Kolkata. All universities seek to practice high-quality research and contributing to the status of knowledge to benefit the intellectual community. And to do this, as best as possible, one should strive for excellence. With this idea of aiming for excellence and reinforcing it for building a research environment, we have among us eminent speakers to share their insightful thoughts at this plenary session on sustainable excellence in research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. It is my proud pleasure to invite our speaker, Dr. Rosalina Ahmed Sophie. Dr. Sophie is presently the Faculty of Entrepreneurship and Business at University Malaysia, Kalimantan. She also served the same institute as Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and International from 2012 to 2015. Ma'am did her Masters of Business Administration and PhD in Management from University of Sheffield, United Kingdom. Her area of specialization is strategic human capital management and development, organizational behavior, leadership management, business innovation, and growth strategy. Ma'am has offered consultancies, training, and talks on human resource management, stress and time management, leadership and strategic management at several workshops and executive development programs for both government and private agencies at both national and international levels. She was the member of Advisory Council, Asian Regional Training and Development Association from 2010 to 2015 and was the Vice President of Asian Academy of Applied Business. She has published several papers in reputed international journals and has authored more than 8 books with renowned publishing house. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. A very good evening to everyone. First and foremost, I would like to address the Reverend Dr. John Felix, the Vice Chancellor and the Chairman of the 3rd Doctoral Colloquium, Professor Dr. Niraj Kumar, Co-Chairman for the 3rd Doctoral Colloquium, and members of the committee, Dr. Soma, Dr. Monalika, and Dr. Manali, and fellow students, as well as participants in this 3rd Doctoral Colloquium. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to address a few things with regards to how to sustain research excellence in the area of, how to sustain excellence in research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. I guess for the fellow students who are currently pursuing your postdoctorate degree, it's very timely that you need to understand the essence of doing a research in the context of your own disciplines. And allow me to share a little bit about the G's that I'm going to share with you through my PowerPoints. Okay, can you all see my PowerPoint?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, so thank you again the introduction for myself, and currently I'm a Dean of the Faculty of Entrepreneurship and Business at the University Malaysia, Kelantan. It is a public-owned university by the government of Malaysia, and we are the 19th among the 20th government universities in Malaysia. And our focus is actually on entrepreneurship. On that note, in Malaysia, we are the eminent entrepreneurial university, and we are championing entrepreneurship program as well as entrepreneurship educations. And we have produced high number of students entrepreneurship and graduate entrepreneurship in the country. So we are #1 in the entrepreneurship disciplines in Malaysia. Right, so this will be my brief, the contents of my notes today. So ranging from background, I will touch a little bit about the essence of doing a research, and then what are the sustainable challenges faced by most of us as scholars as well as students in doing our research, and how do we maintain excellence in research and innovation, and what are the new emerging fields of research, steps in sustaining excellence in research and innovation. And the last part, I will share a little bit what it takes to become a postgraduate or a PhD research, and how to choose a good topic when you want to pursue your doctorate research. And finally, I will just put up some strategies, share with you what are the strategies, how do we bring the research to the greater heights to innovation and enterprise. Right. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. All right, thank you very much. Okay, just let me know if you can't hear me clearly, yeah? Okay, right. In general, when we talk about research, it's about a creativity, something creative that we need to pursue. Okay, the OECD defines research as creative work undertaken on a systematic basis in order to increase the stock of knowledge, including knowledge of man, culture, and society, and the use of this stock of knowledge to devise new applications. So today, whatever research that we are embarking in, right? Okay, there must be something that we want to solve. Yeah? What are the things that we want to solve through this research? So that's what is known as a research output. And the most important thing, what will be the impact to the stakeholders? The stakeholders can be your industry partners, or even can be the community at large, okay, who benefits from the research outcomes. Okay. So I would like to share with you what are the characters of a world-class research. Yeah. So if you're talking about doing something great of your research, okay, don't worry whether if you're doing a PhD doctorate research or even a master's research, you want to make sure that your research is up to the standard. And especially to fellow lecturers, okay, those professors, those academicians, I'm sure you guys want to contribute something to your nation. Yeah? Okay. The first character is that you have to be very specific. You must be very focused. Yeah. So this will allow you to be champion in the discipline that you want to research in. Yeah. So that's #1. You have to be specific in the disciplines that you have chosen. Yeah. For example, in my area, I'm more comfortable in the capacity building. So when we talk about capacity building, it's quite a general, but you can zoom in any specific discipline. For example, I'm talking about capacity building in the area of agriculture, how to develop those farmers, for example. So that's also referred to human resource development. Yeah. Okay. And the focus is that among the farmers in the agriculture sector. So you see how focused it is. Okay. Right. Secondly, the second character, it has to involve in shifting the paradigm. So you got to shift the paradigm. What more if you're doing a PhD research? Yeah. Okay. So PhD research, you need to move to the next boundary. You got to challenge the present theoreticals that you have read. Yeah. So, and you got to ensure that there is a contribution, not just to the knowledge, to the body of knowledge, but what is the contributions to the practicality? How people or how the industry can benefit from your research outcome. So that's referring to shifting the paradigms and creating new models of human understanding. Because in social sciences, for example, we are dealing with people. Even though if you are in the science, yeah, even you are a medical doctor, you are a veterinary doctor, right? There's something that you want to break through. There's something that you want to shift to a better position, yeah. So you got to ensure that the research is shifting the existing paradigms. The second character, we're talking about constructively criticizing perceived wisdom in a specific field. Okay. Go back to my example. I want to talk about the human capital development among the farmers in the agriculture sector. So what's new about it? What's different about developing farmers compared to developing employees in the private sector? So how do you criticize that? When we talk about the human capital theory, people are always talking about developing knowledge, developing skills, and developing attitudes. Okay, can we develop other competencies? Being a farmer, you need to know the skills, yes, and you need to have that knowledge, because most farmers would think that I just need to have the skills, but I don't need to have this knowledge. Yeah? But today, when you talk about you want to upskilling farmers, yeah, the new farmers in the future, so they got to learn something what's new in the context of farming. Yeah, so you have to be able to criticize and have that wisdom to criticize in the field that you are going to specialize. The second character is that you have to views are based on new observations. What's new, right? So what's new observations that you got to observe among the farmers? So when you do some observations, okay, so you are able to understand, yeah, what are the respondent context, okay, how do they feel, what kind of knowledge, what kind of skills, and what kind of work, that's the most important thing, what kind of works they are endeavor currently, yeah. So, and this new observation would include qualitative observation as well as quantitative scientific evidence. Okay, I'm sure most students are very familiar about qualitative work using focus group discussions or interview techniques. And on the quantitative scientific, for example, you are collecting data through your questionnaire survey, or even your through an interview also can be considered as a quantitative scientific evidence. Okay, whatever methods that you choose it, okay, it has to be relevant to the disciplines, the number one, yeah, to the disciplines that you want to embark. Okay, and the other part is that the interpretations of the observations, okay, which ultimately will support the logical conclusions. This is very important. When you're doing a PhD research, your examiner tend to ask you, okay, at the end of the day, how feasible is your research that the industry or the community can embrace or appreciates your findings. So this has to go back to the logic of your work, okay? Do not be so engrossed with the theoretical parts, okay? I'm not trying to say that we should not have theories. We need to have theories. As a postgraduate students, we still need to have theories to govern our research framework. But the important part is the logic of those theories in supporting your framework, which eventually it gives you certain logic when it can be applied by the industry or the community. Yeah, okay. And the last character, okay, observations may be stimulated by the application of new technologies and methodological advances. Okay, this is something which most of the researchers are lacking. Yeah, I'll give you an example. Okay. For example, back to the earlier example, we are developing farmers' competency, okay, in the agriculture sector. Okay, and we have come up with the questionnaire. And can the questionnaire, okay, be turned into an index, a proper index to measure their competency? And can we turn it through an application? We develop a technology or a system so that the farmers, the new farmers in the future, be able to measure their competency through the apps, for example. Because please do not underestimate the future generations. Yeah, okay. Do not underestimate the future generations. Our children, okay, the students over here, they're going to be the future generation, the future human capital. They're going to be the future CEOs of the company. They are going to be the futures of the farmers in the country. Yeah, okay. So they are advanced with certain technological device. So try to assimilate if you can convert your index or your methodology into certain applications, that will be marvelous actually. Yeah. Right. So what are the challenges actually facing? Sorry, going. If I can put this. Now it's moving. Okay, right. So what are the challenges actually facing us in conducting our research? Okay. Number one is to identify those new areas of research, okay, which involve innovation, academic data analytics. How do we manage those resources, not just financial, but also the infrastructure or any facilities that we are given to embark our research. For example, those people in the sciences, yeah? So they may have some chemicals, elements, chemical devices, or even those people who are in the veterinary. So they have some animals that can be treated as specimens of their research. So those are considered as resources. And then the ease of talent acquisitions as well. So these are talking about the members who are going to be the members of our research. Okay, if you are the lecturers, okay, normally we would have a team, right? Okay, we would have a team. So whether this talent would have the right talent to facilitate your research discipline. Yeah, if your research is going to be a hybrid research, so make sure that you have the talents that acquired the multiple skills or disciplines that you wish them to be involved in your research. Okay. The other one, okay, moving to the right hand side. Okay, the translational research strategies. So this is something that today we often heard. Okay, people will ask us, okay, so what's so good about your research? Even doing a PhD research. So the examiner at the end of the day will ask you, so what, right? Okay, the so what factor is actually how does it impact the industry or the communities or whoever stakeholders that you think would benefit from your research. Okay. So the challenges is that prior to identify the right topic, okay, try your best, okay, what is the research topic that is addressing the current phenomena in the country, whichever in the context of economic, business, finance, or whatever it is that you want to be involved, as so long that it gives impact. So that is what it means by translational research. Okay. So the other challenges is that to get the relationship or partners in your research. Okay. So some big research, yeah, okay. The challenge is to get the industry or community to sit together with us as a researcher, okay? And then the universities and the government as a partner in this form that providing the funding and also facilitating in terms of infrastructure and infrastructures. So that is known as the quadruple helix relationships. Okay, this is a good thing that if you could have some industry or community partners as well as other universities. I'm reminding the lecturers who are going for a bigger research grant, right? So you should think about having some relationship with other stakeholders. Yeah. Okay. Of course, for the doctorate research, you may not necessarily to require the industry or community, but the moment when your examiner want to know more about your respondents, actually you are addressing the industry and community there. Yeah. Okay. The third part is that disseminating the findings through publications and network. Okay, so this is actually the last part. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I will touch that later. Okay, I will move to this one, the competency of researchers. Yeah, okay. The members who are in your research team. So you need, number one, you need to identify the right leader. Very important to have a good leader who can motivate and understand the disciplines well. Yeah, and they have an experience of doing research, previous research. So get the members, okay, who are competent in the disciplines or in the fields that you want to embark. Yeah, okay. The other part that's quite challenging, okay, in any world, yeah, if you're going to Australia or America or even the UK, even in Malaysia as well. So we have what we call the ethical challenges. Yeah, managing ethics in research as well as managing those data. For example, in my previous research, I did a research on the stress and burnout among nurses, because it involves human being. Yeah, okay, nurses are human. Okay, right. So they required, the fraternity of nurses required that ethical declarations. Okay, whether I've got the permission from the nurses fraternity, especially the associations of nurses in Malaysia, that I would like to study the burnout among those nurses. So how do we manage those articles? Because some data may be confidential, right? Which would not allow us to disclose, yeah, to the public. So this is something that we got to be very sensitive upon. Yeah, okay. And the other challenges is to get the fundings. Who's going to finance our research? Doing a PhD research, doing a scholarly research as a lecturers, we got to pursue our research. Okay, who's going to fund our research? Okay. Today, there are a lot of actually funding mechanism, and I'm sure in India also the same. The Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Trades, okay, do have some allocations for research. Even the university itself, okay, would have their internal grant to allocate certain amount for the research activity in the universities. Yeah, and which one is better? Should we depend on the internal grant or should we depend on the external grant? As a lecturers, okay, yes, it would be best to have external grant. Okay, depend more on the external grant. But as a student, okay, sometimes you have to depend on your internal grant or even your own pocket money, because you're doing your own PhD, right? Unless you are under scholarships or sponsorship by certain industry or government sponsors. Yeah. Okay. And the other one is the support system. How supportive our universities to facilitate our research activities at the universities. This is very important. For the students, okay, especially those in the sciences disciplines, you may want to require certain labs or incubator. Yeah, okay. So would your university allow you to use the labs, especially those sciences, those scientists, those engineers, those medical people, chemistry, when they embark on the research, okay? So they need to use those labs, okay? Do your labs have enough facilities? Yeah, okay. And when you talk about innovation, yeah, you want to innovate something. From the labs, you got to incubate. The reason to incubate for you to analyze further whether it is feasible enough to be commercialized. Yeah. So the moment we say, is our research finding feasible to be commercialized, back in our mind, we are talking about entrepreneurship here. Okay. So the innovations derived from the research outputs, okay, would have strong potentials to be commercialized. And the support systems also must be based on certain policy. Is our policy flexible enough to allow the research findings to be commercialized? Do we have an intellectual property right to protect the research findings? Students, for example, you get your students to work on something. Are they allowed to protect their findings? Who's going to own? Who's the ownership of the research finding? Is it the students, or is it the university, or is it the lecturers? The answer, of course, is the institutions where the research is being financed or being sponsored. Okay, so those among the challenges that we normally face currently and in the future. So we got to remember, you guys, okay, the translational part, okay, and the new research areas. Okay, for example, now we're talking about COVID. What is the post-COVID impact on the small, medium enterprise? What is the post-COVID impact on the teaching and learning in the university? So these are the current and contemporary research areas that we should look into that. Yeah, okay, so those are some of the challenges. Okay, right. The next one, how do we maintain excellence in the research and innovations? I'm sharing with you the framework. How should we maintain excellence in research, yeah, and innovation? Okay, if you look at this diagram, okay, the RS is actually research strategy, yeah, okay. RS is research strategy. IS is the innovation strategy. I stands for innovation, okay. And the other part, the other circle of the research strategy and innovation strategy, there are few strategies that which I have outlined here. Yeah, if you look at my slide here, okay, and the other circles, okay, there are 4 components. So these are known as the 4 key players in any research. Yeah, okay. All right. Why do I have the arrow up and down from research strategy? Okay, potentially a good research to sustain excellence in research. When you have a translational research or impactful research, therefore you are talking about innovation. You are producing something which is innovative, right? And this innovation hopefully has the potential to be commercialized. So from commercializations, you are talking building the entrepreneurship culture in the university. Yeah? And from the innovation strategy, you will definitely discover what's new. I'm sure you are going to be very motivated to discover something else. So that will push you back to conduct further research. So that eventually it's just like a vicious cycle. Every time you conduct a research, there is an answer to the innovation, and from the innovation, it will steer you to come up with a new research topic. Yeah, okay. And for the research strategy, again, right? So you need to be very clear about your funding strategy. Where am I going to get those funding? Because any research, you need money to do. Yeah, okay. Don't tell me that, oh, well, I can do research for free. Yes, you can do research for free because you are not charging your stakeholders. But when you collect your data, you want to print out your instruments, you want to buy your deliverables, measurements, or items for your research. Yeah, you still need to purchase. You need the money there. Okay, and then the facilitation strategy. Who's going to facilitate? You have to employ a good facilitation strategy where you will learn from the key experts. Who are your experts in that area who can assist you, who can facilitate you? And the third strategy is to dwell with your leaderships just now. Yeah, so you got to identify, as I mentioned earlier, okay, who are the leaders who can guide you? Yeah, okay. And the fourth strategy is, okay, this is where something I would like to remind the management of the universities. Okay, please look on the incentive package for your researchers, especially your academics. Yeah, for example, I could share what's happened in my university. Okay, whenever the researcher, the academicians, okay, produce something and publish in the good or high impact journals, okay, the academic will be given an incentive in the form of monetary value. Yeah, so it's a lot of money actually. For example, if you're publishing in the Q1 journal, yeah, Q1 journal and high impact, yeah, it has to be Q1 WOS, okay, ISI. Then you got an incentive as high as 5,000 ringgit Malaysia. Yeah, I'm not sure how much is that in rupee, right? So that's pretty high. So that motivates your researcher, your academicians to do more research and publish. And the other research strategy that you have to look at, okay, as I mentioned just now, the current and impactful. Current topic, contemporary topic, and must have impact to the stakeholders. Okay, so these are the 5 research strategies that you need to play around, okay, and try to adopt when you embark in the research. Okay, as for the innovation strategy, this is pretty challenging actually for most of the institutions. Okay, can you set up a business entrepreneurship programs, because you are talking about driving the innovations to the next level to commercialize it? Yeah, okay. So you must have a certain business, or what we call the BEP in short, the business entrepreneurship programs. And then it must be backed up with the incubation. Do you have the proper incubation, okay, to further test your research finding, the innovations that you have discovered from your research? And then who are the industry partnership? This is a must. You must get your industry partnership to come in, engage with them, buy in, yeah? Okay, so that they can appreciate the innovations that you have discovered from your research, from the first part just now, yeah, okay. And then for the students, okay, would you have a policy for the students to create their student enterprise? So in our case, yes, we do have. We allow students, okay, together with the lecturers to set up their own business. So the students and the lecturers are able to set up the business and also be able to incubate the innovations, okay, so that further research can be done until it is fully commercialized. Yeah. And when you talk about innovation and commercialization, so the element of technology transfer must be there. So you must have an office who handle the technology transfer. So technology transfer is not just meddling on the technology or apps, okay, but also facilitating the conversions of the research outputs to innovations and to the commercialization stage. Yeah. Right. So who are the key players that govern the whole strategies? Yeah. So these are the key players that we must have, especially at the university level, as well as at the academic levels who wants to embark in the good research. So you must have the combinations of researchers who are the lecturers, the postgraduate students, or maybe your postdoctorate students. And the universities are there to support, to provide the right incentive, to provide the right fundings, internal grants, and for the startup funds. Yeah? So startup funds is to facilitate the innovations to the next level. And then you must be able to identify who are your industry or community who will be benefits from the research, from the innovation process. And finally, how would the government see the innovations output of the universities? So the governments have to buy in. You got to engage with the government or the ministry, for example, the Ministry of Science, the Ministry of Higher Education, the Ministries of Entrepreneurships, or Ministry of Trade, okay? Who's going to buy in and listen to the innovations that has been discovered through by the institutions. Yeah, so that makes the whole sustainability of excellence in the research. So we are not just focusing on fundamental research, which we are so used of it. The fundamental research, basically a discovery of framework or new theory, but today we are talking about moving forward to the next frontier. So what will be the impact to the industry, to the community, or other stakeholders? It could be the government as well as the private agency. So that's why I'm sharing with you. These are the, in a nutshell, okay, this is the framework if we were to maintain excellence in research and innovation. Okay, so just to share with you, okay, what are the new emerging fields of research? Yeah, just to share with you, perhaps the, okay, put it this way. I hope you can see. Okay, so these are the new emerging fields I could share with you, especially to those students as well as the academic lecturers. Okay, there are emerging areas that we can conduct research related to COVID-19. Actually, COVID-19 impact on the small medium enterprises, COVID-19 impact on the students, on the nurses, on the doctors, COVID-19 impact on the students itself, right? COVID-19 impacts on the future of education. How do we liberalize the education system? So there are a lot of things that we can, these are we talking about the emerging fields, yeah? Okay. The other emerging fields, you're talking about digital and resilience leaderships, okay? Those who are very much interested in leadership study, okay, please look into this. Currently, I'm doing a research, okay? I'm still ongoing, talking about the resilience leaderships. What are the index or the factors that related to the resilience, the resilience characteristic, and why it is a very important aspect when you're talking about you are moving into the VUCA environment, yeah, a very complex environment, very challenging, very vulnerable environments, okay, uncertainty environments. So we need leaders who have that resilience. So how do we measure resilience, okay? And digital leaderships, because we are moving towards IR 4.0. China now is moving towards 6.0. Malaysia is still struggling to address the 4.0, and I think India also the same. We are now in the 4.0. Perhaps India may be already moving forward to 5.0. So there's a need for a digital leaderships to drive the new era, yeah, the new digital era in the future. So that's also related to the emerging technology. We're talking about artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things, robotics. So how do we study those things on business efficiencies, human skills developments, okay, and the new educations for the future. So these are all emerging fields that currently that I feel that it is still lacking in terms of research, yeah? And global, for those who are interested in the educations, we're talking about global education curriculum. What will be the future-ready curriculum? What will be the new education systems to cater the global education systems, okay? How do we move away from the bureaucracy in the education management, for example, yeah? Okay. And when you talk about curriculum, the designing of the program, the academic program, not just at tertiary levels, but also at the primary and the secondary school levels, yeah, because we are going to produce the future leaders or the future human capitals who are very equipped with the emerging technology, and we also want them to be the digital leadership. So we got to address the grassroots issues as well at the education level, yeah. Right, and then those who are interested on the health, I think there are still a lot of research opportunities in the community of health, new diseases, yeah, okay, in Malaysia, or even related to COVID-19. There's a lot of types of virus, okay, we have that Delta variants, we have the African variant COVID, and so forth, yeah, so there are lots of issues on thyroid and everything that's still wanting request scholars to embark on those research, yeah. global warming, climate change. So this is a never-ending story. We're talking about today, why Africa, why India, Malaysia, and also now we're facing a climate change. We are pretty hot now, very warm. It close to 40 degrees Celsius daytime. So we do not know what's happening in the global environment. Yeah. Okay, water is depleting. Why there are certain countries are short of water? What's wrong? So there are lots of things that can be done actually, not just about the fundamental aspects, but what are the technologies that can overcome those aspects in the climate change or global warming. And those who are interested on the logistic and supply chains, the emerging aspects now is on the drop shipping. Yeah, we're talking about drop shipping. This is another booming industry in the world. So America at the moment is looking from the conventional supply chain towards the drop shipping supply chain. Yeah, so this is something which is also emerging currently. And the other one, which I think is the gig economies, the emerging of the gig economies, social entrepreneurship, social innovations. Okay, when you talk about gig economics, okay, you're talking about the Food Panda, those riders, yeah. Tokopedia in Indonesia, so okay, I think in India you have similars as well. In Malaysia we have the Food Panda, Grab. Yeah, okay, so those are the e-hailing riders. Okay, and bear in mind the emerging of the gig economies is going to be booming in the next 10 years. Yeah, and is going to be extended not just among the white collar, but it's going to move to the blue collar people. So the blue collar people, just people like me, professors like Professor Niraj, Dr. Soma, and so forth, right? Okay, so in the future, maybe you will not see us in the university, but we are working as a gig players. So you want us, you will touch us based on a piecemeal of work. So we go for you. Okay, we have the apps of professors, apps of academics. So you just click in, okay, I would like to have a service on digital or artificial intelligence systems or whatever. So you can call all these professors and they will come to you, just like how when you contact the Grab car. So it is the same thing to be applied to the blue collar skills. Yeah. So today I've seen the lawyers already being is in the gig economies. Okay, they are freelancers. So the future is that we predict, the World Economic Forums predicts that the future will be gig economics, and most of our students would love to work as a freelancers rather than tied to the company policy. Yeah. Okay. So these are all emerging fields in the near future. Okay. Right. So just one or two more last slides. Okay. I hope I can finish it in 5 minutes. Okay. The steps in sustaining excellence in research and innovation. First, just to caution the doctorate students. Yeah. Okay. Read the trends. What are the trends now? You have to read. So by attending conferences, for example, if you are interested on COVID, so try to attend certain webinars or conference that related to COVID-19. So you can learn from there what are the current trends. Yeah. Okay. From there, seek out to others. So talk to your professors, talk to your academia. Okay, what do you think? Okay, how this COVID would impact these small medium enterprises? And now people's talking about the impact on the micro enterprises. So the Indonesia, for example, okay, have now a flagging sheet on MSME. Whereas in Malaysia, we're still talking about SME, but they're now, in like Indonesia, they are promoting and they are campaigning on MSME. So meaning they are putting an impact on the micro, small, medium enterprises. Yeah, okay. So seek out others, your professors, your colleagues, okay, or even the industry. Okay, what do they think? Why do I need to do this research? Okay, how can it shift the existing the existing phenomena or the existing paradigms. And then quickly identify, sample, and experiment on a specific topic. Okay, right. So how do we go about? So this is where you need to have a small pilot study. Okay, if let's say the research is, the topic that you have chosen is totally new, totally new. So you ought to identify a small sample which you could experiment on it. Whether you want to talk to them, interview them, or discuss in the group. So that's what it means. I'm not saying that you have to go for a bigger sample or it's kind of challenging. That no, just talk to a few people who are involved in that situation or that trends that you feel that you are interested to research on. Okay. Then you got to think about disseminating those knowledge. Please, okay, why most of the institutions, okay, put a compulsory policy that every postgraduate student you must publish or you must present, because you need to share whatever that you have found through your research. Very important. If we discover something, we keep it to yourself. That's reflects that you are not doing any good in your research and you are not doing justice to the outsiders, to your stakeholders. So you got to share your research findings. So conduct a colloquium, conduct a roundtable discussions where you allow people to listen to your research. For example, the colloquium. Colloquium is a good start for a doctoral student, where all of the students, postgraduate student will be assembled together, and you got to learn from your colleagues, what are they doing? From there, you are actually learning something. So don't tell them, well, your research is nothing got to do with my expertise. Hey guys, okay, in this world, we have to learn. Even though it is not my expertise, why not? It is something new that we can learn. Okay. So that's how it should go, when you talk about sustaining excellence in the future. So these are the steps that I could share with you. Okay. So my last part, just to share with the postgraduate students, I'm sure that most of the graduate students, okay, the first year, you are modeling, right? Okay, to choose the right topic. The PGR is the postgraduate research topic. Sometimes I know some of my students, okay, up to 1 year, he or she does not feel comfortable with the topic. So what's wrong? Okay, so this is the role of the supervisor to guide the students. Okay, right. So I just share with you, as earlier as 1984, when Robert Smith, okay, talking about the graduate research, okay, he has been talking that he has cautioned the postgraduate students that one, you must be motivated, enthusiastically pursue the topic. Okay, you have to remember, postgraduate student, okay, you got 3 years if you're doing your PhD. If you are master students, you got roughly about 2 years by masters by research, right? Or masters by taught courses, you've got 1 year. Okay, so you're going to sit, you're going to sleep, you're going to dream about your research topic. So make sure that when you choose the topic, you must be motivated and you like the topic most, okay? And then be able to sustain your interest till the end of your PhD. And is the problem are solvable? So you always talk about what is the problem? What is the research problem? Okay, so it has been long, it's been there for ages when Robert Smith talking about research, okay? So you got to solve something. Why you conduct a research? Because you want to solve something. So is it worth pursuing it, okay? Will it lead to other research problems? Okay, don't tell me that once you discover the research problem, then you will lead you to another research. No harm, okay? If it's giving you a signal, hey, it leads to another research problem, so I can create 1 or 2 more research. Reserve that, reserve that for others, okay? Or reserve that in the future for you to embark a new research topic. Okay, and then don't be too ambitious that, oh, I want to have 500 respondents. I want to have 300 respondents. I can't give you example. I can't give you the right formula. 10 is better, or 100 is better, or 30 is better, or 300 is better. It's depending on the scope of your work. So this is the role of your professors, okay, to guide you, okay? What will be the manageable size for you to embark on your research? Yeah, okay. And number 7, what is the potential for making an original contribution to the literature? So as a doctorate student, okay, you need to ask yourself, how good is my research? Can I challenge the theory? Yeah, okay. So that's talking about contributions to the knowledge. How good is my research? Can it solve the industry problem? So that's talking about practical contributions. If you answer both, you are correct. Okay. And the scholars in your field receive the results well if you solve the problem. Okay. Scholars means you or other people, for example, your lecturers, your supervisors, okay, will receive the results well when they read your thesis. Yeah. Are you competent to solve it? So this is something as a doctorate student, postgraduate students, you'll be trained how to conduct a research, right? What is research methodologies? What are the sampling techniques? What are the analysis methods and so forth, okay? And then by solving it, will you have demonstrated independent skills in your disciplines? What I hope is that from my postgraduate research, okay, at the end of the day, it's not just about the solving the problem, but also the experience in conducting a research, the skills, yeah, that you will acquire when you conduct a research. Okay? And then finally, will the necessary research prepare you in the area of demand or promise for the future? Okay. So if you have a research which is very contemporary, okay, and give you an impact, right? Okay, the stakeholders some impact, yeah. So that's actually you are promising yourself there must be some potentially innovation in your research. Okay, right. So my second last slide, this is to share with the postgraduate research. Okay, how to choose and identify a topic. Ask yourself why. What is the novelty of it? What are the issues that you have to ask yourself first? Spend quite sometimes to identify the topic, maybe around like 2 to 3 months for that. Yeah, okay. And then on your right hand side, read and look at the trend. Yeah, what are the industry issues? Is there any data to support the issues? Okay, for example, you want to study the stress among the medical doctors. Is there any data telling you that the doctors are actually facing high stress? Okay, and what is the contributions to knowledge? And then the research questions. So these are the principles of research question. It has to be focused, researchable, feasible, specific, complex, and relevant. Okay, and the scope of the study, where you want to conduct the study, who is going to involve, and why you are so interested to conduct that research on the doctor, as COVID impact on the medical doctor. Why? Yeah, okay. And then I know many people do not like this, but I'm telling you, okay, get the right supervisor to supervise you. And this supervisor must be expert in the field, not just expert, but I'm putting there, okay, he or she must be very committed and already experienced in the postgraduate supervision. If he or she is not experienced yet, okay, please get a senior one, and the junior lecturer can be the co or be in the committee of supervision. Because as a lecturer, we also need to need to train our younger lecturers how to supervise the students. Yeah, okay. And the big term in the research, doing a research for postgraduate research, is developing the proposal. Yeah? So I'm putting there, what are the G's of the developing proposal? Okay, don't rush on developing your proposal. I have students who have spent as long as 2 years to develop the proposal. And I've got also students who are also spend as short as about 6 months in developing their proposals. Okay, that varies from one person to another person. But what I could share with you, once you get your proposal right and you pass the proposal stage, everything, inshallah, will come very smoothly. Yeah, your data collections, your data analysis, and then your writing up the final stage, okay, will come very smoothly. Yeah, so the hardest part is from choosing the topic, to reach the trend, identify the right research questions, the scope, getting the right supervisors, and until the development. So you look at this at my diagram, okay? 3/4 rate is the hardest part in doing a postgraduate research, yeah? Okay. Then once you get through, you're talking about data collection and analysis stage, okay? On this note, you must know what is the right software and the procedure, okay? Right, I know many students will hire people to do the data analysis, okay? But as a researcher, you should be able to interpret the data, okay? You should know the procedures. When I did my PhD in 1990s, that was very, very long time ago, more than 25 years ago, right? I learned from the hard way. I key in the data from the raw data, right? And I analyze it, I print it out, I interpret it, okay? And of course, I have to understand the statistical procedure because I'm doing the quantitative methods, okay? So that's how I learned the process. If I were to give to other people, okay, yes, he or she may be good in the SPSS or Smart PLS. So he will just run for you, but he may not be good at interpreting the data. And he may not be right in choosing the right procedure to analyze the data. So you got to be very careful when you engage or you hire outsiders to run your data, yeah? Okay. And finally, the writing and the viva process, okay? You have to be very clear. You must understand your research. It must be at your fingertips, yeah? The writing must reflect academic rigor, yeah? For the postgraduate, okay, it is not like industry report or it's not like an academic survey, but a postgraduate research, you must have that academic rigor, okay? You must be able to criticize, you must be able to justify, and you must be able to deliberate and conclude your findings as concrete as possible. And reference must be up to date, and the publications, okay, please make sure that you have published some from your research outputs, yeah, okay. So last but not least, okay, to be the world-class research and how to bring from research to innovation and enterprise, yeah, okay. So the world-class research and the world-class universities today, yeah, and the future, they need to drive the innovations, yeah, they need to drive innovation, they need to drive the entrepreneurship. Let me share with you there, okay. They need to drive the entrepreneurship and enterprise through generations of intellectual properties and new ideas. So this is where universities and academics, yeah, okay, you can leverage on your postgraduate students, okay, guide them to create or to embark a research that is something which is very innovative, and it can benefit both students as well as the universities. And then contributing to supporting the local or national or even international businesses and entrepreneurs to generate economy. If the research is feasible enough, has the commercialization potential, yes, you can move further to create those startup companies. Okay? And commercial exploitation of research activities, that's what I'm talking about. And supply graduates with high talent that contributes to the economy. So these are the 5 essence if you would like to sustain a world-class research and a world-class university. Yeah, okay. And how to do that? In my conclusions, I put up the 5 strategies. Okay, create that critical mass. Yeah. So you want to have the students, you want to have quality students, you want to have quality lecturers. So build their competency through training and development. Okay, and then seek for external research funding. External research funding, do not depend on the internal. So this is the role of the vice chancellor or the deputy vice chancellors in research and innovation to organize, okay, to source, to look what are the funding opportunities outside there that you can grab and bring back into your universities and tell to your academicians, okay, that we have certain funds. So now we got to prepare the proposals. Yeah. And systems should be put in place to support and enhance cross-disciplinary research today. So today, we are talking not just one focus area. So it could be a hybrid. It could be a hybrid. For example, the social scientists will want to work together with the technologists, yeah, or with the medical people. So that's the thing. For example, in my post-COVID research recently on the small and medium enterprise, so I have a combination of technologists, medical lecturers, and the social business lecturers in my team. Okay, and a system might be put in place also to drive and support the innovation. For example, you have the policies in order to fund the startup companies or giving out license to other peoples to commercialize your products. Yeah, so this would encourage and support the entrepreneurship agenda of the university. And finally, the incentives and rewards such as publication incentive, special acceleration grant, and also for career promotion. So those are the 5 strategies that would enhance the excellence in the research and innovation. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you very much. And I pass to the Madam Chairman.
Thank you for your valuable inputs in the session. It's an honor to invite our next speaker of the session, Dr. Pingali Venugopal. Sir has teaching, research, consulting, and industry experience in marketing function in the Indian context for over 35 years. His area of specializations are marketing management, sales and distribution management, and marketing research. Sir has done his postgraduate management program and doctorate from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Currently, he is the coordinator at the Center for Global Management and Responsible Leadership at XRI Jamshedpur. He has been a marketing faculty in XRI Jamshedpur since 1994 and served the institute as dean from 2004 to 2010. He has also been a visiting faculty to leading institutes in India, including the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Kolkata, Ranchi, Kashmir, and Indore, and international institutes, including American University of Armenia. Prior to joining academics, Sir has served the marketing department of several corporate houses for a period of 10 years. Sir has published several research papers in leading international and national journals and has authored 7 books covering areas of marketing and Indian economy. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. And at the outset, I'd like to thank St. Xavier's University for inviting me to give this talk in this colloquium. So I would just, I've been there and Dr. Rosalyn Ahmed was giving a lecture and very detailed and very nice process, entire steps that she has outlined. It was very educative and I also got a lot of information from that. So few points which I would like to highlight, and primarily because that is where I would like to take off from, try to link up some of this to my talk that I'm talking about. So one of the points which was very critical for all of us is that we need to be motivated, because anything that we are doing, that is one of the primary aspects which has to be there, that when I'm pursuing something, am I really involved in that? Am I motivated? So that's one thing which has to be very, very important. And then the second point, which was, is it really worth pursuing it? Why am I doing it? Is it really going to be any value, or to whom is it going to be valuable? And therefore, is it really solving an industry problem? Is it able to contribute to the local national or global level, because unless and until my research is actually contributing to some of this, why is it really worth doing that particular type of research? And the other important dimension which is there, which is a very important thing today, is that we have to cut across our functional areas and more in terms of looking at in the cross-cultural type of research and all. So thank you, Dr. Rosalina. I got a lot of knowledge and benefit from your presentation. I will try to share a few of my thoughts with all the participants, and let me share my screen and okay, I have option. Is the screen visible? Okay, so I'll share a few thoughts about this whole topic about sustainable excellence in research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So if I just look at this topic, I can primarily divide this into two broad heads. One is about what is the meaning of what is the word sustainable excellence mean, and the other is in terms of research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So I'm just trying to understand this concept of sustainable excellence, and when I was just trying to define or understand, so the word sustainable excellence includes trying to understand questions which are focusing on the environmental questions like climate, water, and biodiversity, which is something which is very, very important and critical for the future. And sustainable excellence also includes the impact of business on emerging economies and also labor rights of all the workers in the global supply chain and other things. So the whole point is something that we are looking at in terms of a long term or the future. How is my or whatever we are going to look at, can it really contribute to some of these areas which are going to be there? Now, moving to the second dimension is research excellence and innovation. So how do we really focus in terms of our research when the entire technologies that are going to play a dominant role in terms of this, which are primarily in terms of transforming society and improving the human conditions? So where is the role of research and innovation coming in is largely when we are looking at, as already mentioned, that how are we really looking at vis-a-vis the industry. So the connection between the knowledge and in terms of the companies which is going to be there. So there is a need to complement each other. How this interaction between the companies and the researchers and the universities is going to be there, which is going to be important. So as we said, is it really worth it? Is it contributing? So if I'm able to really look at my problems or look at in terms of what I'm doing with respect to what is the type of context that I'm talking about, where is it really going to be benefiting, who is going to benefit, all these are going to be important. So at a very broad level, what we are primarily looking at is in terms of this entire chain or the interaction between the industry and society and the university. So when we are looking at, I think already the emphasis of this has already been given, but I'm just trying to re-emphasize that there is a need for us to integrate with the industry and society. And therefore, all the ideas or whatever that we are trying to look at and innovation, including the resources. I'm again not going further into the resources and funding, which I think Dr. Rosalina has already explained in very great detail. So this whole chain is something which is going to be very important of how we are linking up entire process by which we are identifying or working towards something which is going to be having a worthwhile type of output that we are going to look at. So I will just try to put it from in a slightly different type of a framework when we are trying to look at it in terms of this, just trying to build up. And what I'll use is something which is a very normal or common type of things that we nowadays talk about. But somewhere we may not be really putting so much of emphasis on that type of thing. And the framework I'm just trying to propose when we are trying to look at how we should be able to really involve ourselves into the entire research, and which is what the point that I said, that I should be motivated and I should do something which is worthwhile. So the basic framework, which I'm sure all of you would be familiar with, is talking about knowing, doing, and being. Because somewhere when we are looking at in terms of a lot of research is currently focused on knowing rather than seeing how it is being really translated into doing. And more importantly, are we really passionate? Are we really involved? And are we really walking the talk that we are trying to look at? So if I'm looking at a sustainable type of model, if I have to start in terms of this, the being becomes quite important. So if that is going to happen only if my research is able to actually be implemented, or as is in terms of something which can be worthwhile for the industry or the society, which as I was talking about, and also Dr. Rosalina has emphasized quite a bit about that. So if I'm just quickly trying to define this, the competence in terms of this whole knowing is about the theories and methods that are required for in terms of research or management or whatever it is in terms of this. Whereas doing is primarily looking at in terms of the applicability. How is my knowledge going to be applied? Whether the type of theories that I'm building up, whether I'm talking in terms of the whatever research that I'm doing, does it have a practical application which is going to be there? And as already which I've been talking about earlier and also mentioned in terms of being, talks about my own personal values and goals, which talks about how involved am I in terms of trying to give the right type of output rather than just in terms of something which is just for the sake of completion or just for the sake of whatever type of aspects that I'm primarily looking at. So here, as I mentioned in terms of that, the whole point about being motivated, about being involved and being committed to what I'm primarily trying to do. So I'm just trying to see how we can try to break it up into these three aspects as far as our research type of activities are being concerned. So when we are looking at in terms of knowing, again, if you just try to compare, I think some of these points have already been talked about, because the whole point of research that we are talking about has to be understanding the limits of the market and models. Dr. Rosalina's presentation also has highlighted on this type of thing. And a point which I've tried to identify, or something which I've been focusing on, is that my research or our research has to be context specific. Because if I'm doing a particular type of research, or if I'm looking at in terms of this, something which is going to be very important is, as we were talking about, how am I really contributing to the local, national, and the global type of knowledge? I have to start looking at the context which I'm really looking at. What is the type of context, and whether my research is going to generate any sort of context-specific type of knowledge. Because each topic or each theory which is there could have a very significant, could have a significant difference depending on the type of context that you're talking about, or the area that you are looking at in terms of this. And build up on terms of relevant indigenous research, because a lot of topics or areas which are there, which could be of a very local and a specific type of areas which require attention, which would be very beneficial to contributing to the local people and as well as into the indigenous type of knowledge. So can I really understand them? Can I really look at in terms of those specific type of areas which are going to be there? Again, the whole point when I'm focusing on in terms of knowing is that all of us are familiar in terms of this also, that whenever I'm applying a scale, I have to try and adopt it to the specific context. So can I really create instruments which are applicable and relevant to the context? And many times this is important because many scales that are developed for a particular type of context may not be suited for our context. Primarily because of the cultural, or the social, or maybe economic, or whatever type of reasons that we can identify. The instrument should be relevant, which are context specific. So everything that we are focusing on is, can it be contextualized? Can it be focusing on something which is more relevant to that particular type of areas which are there? And this again, Dr. Rosalina talked about the multidisciplinary perspective. Because as we are moving higher and higher into the problems, as we are moving into more relevant of trying to identify the relevance of the problems, those are not something which can be jacketed into one functional area. I have to look at it cutting across functional areas. It has to be a multidisciplinary type of perspective. And I think maybe 2 years back in the first, I think it was a doctoral colloquium or one of these at your university only, I was talking about a transdisciplinary type of approach. So something like that where we have to go beyond our functional area. We have to be able to understand the context, understand the problem from different or the 360-degree type of perspective. Because if I am focusing only on one discipline, I may be losing on the finer aspects which is going to be important for solving that type of problems. And as already mentioned, it is about developing relationship with the practitioners, because that understanding that relevance, understanding that it is going to be useful is something which is going to be important. So the whole concept of knowing, can I think through? Can I identify my topics? Can I look at in terms of my research which is going to be more meaningful? And it will something which can also give me a greater amount of satisfaction when I can say, okay, this is something which I have contributed to the society. This is something which is being used by the society, by the industry, by the government. All this could make a lot of point. Yeah, sorry, yes, somebody? Second is in terms of doing, which is about how are we looking at it in terms of the applicability of our research to the in terms of the industry or the local or national or global type of things. So is my research, as I mentioned earlier, able to change the prevailing practices, which is going to be looking at in terms of a longer term and sustainable type of thing? Because when we are talking about today, several of our problems that we have created have been because of our short-term orientation. A lot of us have been looking at issues from a very, very short-term type of situation, especially if you talk about an industry, we are looking at maximizing shareholder value today, rather than what are we looking at in terms of a long-term perspective which is there. So this becomes a big challenge because I have to really relook at the entire way in which the current practices may be. I have to question. I have to try and see if there is any change that I can try to bring about. And therefore, and when it comes in terms of this, it is important that I should not be alone or should not do it independently, because this requires a change by the existing people. It's about a change in terms of their mindset. It is a change in terms of their practices. So there is a need for a collaboration between the researchers and practitioners so that we can co-produce knowledge. And all these are interrelated, that all my research findings, I should be able to check whether this is going to be applicable in the organizational or any type of actual context. Because it's not simply about a research, it's not simply about getting one tick mark, but whether it is really being applicable, whether it is has the utility and applicability in the organization. And again, this has been talked about in terms of how to write the type of report and all. So I'm just adding another dimension here. I'm not sure whether it was also mentioned, may have been mentioned. It should be written in a way that it will help us to diagnose situations. And that is where the next point comes in, that rather than theories, can I develop frameworks? Because personally, I have been working on this because several of my work has been only focusing on developing frameworks which can be applied to the context. At least to that extent, I can feel that I have created a certain set of frameworks which can be applied. And so at least to the way that if I am anybody as an industry or any type of person, if I look at a framework, is it something that I can apply to the context in which I am there, and therefore it can give me some idea about what I should be able to do or what I should not be able to do. So, and of course the last one is important, because if I can build up industry executives as part of my doctoral committees, it will also help in terms of getting the industry perspective so that we are able to really build up in terms of how we are going to move towards this entire type of context-specific aspects which are there, which are going to be worthwhile to the industry and maybe help in terms of solving some of the current problems, as well as in terms of look at the possibilities of the future problems. And finally, when it comes in terms of the role, being, it is in terms of how are we really going to be involved? What is it in terms of me? What is going to drive me towards this type of activities? Especially when we talk about problems which are about sustainability and which are in terms of several of these problems that I talked about, climate or in terms of global warming and so many types of things, environment. This requires a lot of individual motivation to be able to question and think about some of these things. So therefore, it is all about societal consciousness and awareness. How am I able to build up that societal consciousness and awareness to help me to think about some of these problems, question some of these things and see what I can contribute. And therefore, can I do something which can improve and contribute to the advancement of the common good, which is about being. So as an individual, if I'm able to be in terms of very committed towards a particular type of issue, then I'll really be able to look at that problem in a much more holistic way and a much more meaningful way so that I can also contribute. At an institute level, also, I mean, there could be certain things that can be done. One is in terms of have a very strong type of a mentor type of thing where some very good, strong, I mean, strong, well-trained researchers are able to train the next generation. I'm sure it is already there, but in terms of which can provide in terms of the whole concept in terms of how for the thinking partners and collaborators for faculty and other things, and help us to bounce, because again I think what was talked about is in terms of if I'm that idea which may take certain amount of time, because what point I should be looking at, what should be the type of topic. And I also look at this as something which is a very important aspect which is there. If I am able to identify a very good topic, very relevant topic, then it makes a lot of sense for all of us. And therefore, am I really putting so much of thought process? And fine, I may be putting, but then is it something which is good or bad? Unless and I'm able to bounce it or discuss with some of the more senior or experienced people, it may not be really be able to be concretized. In my own experience, I mean, my own personal life, for me, it took almost 6 months to really pin down on what should be my real topic. But once I come down to that topic, after that, everything was very clear. But why should I do this topic, or what was the purpose? All this took me about 6 months. And there was in my thesis also, I actually acknowledged one of my seniors who has actually helped me to concretize on this problem. So even today, I always have a very high respect and regard to that person. And at different forums, I have talked about him in terms of how he is able to help me and guide me in terms of coming to the topic. After that, we never interacted because he had left the institute and all, but that was enough for me to take me to a direction. And even today, I can say that I have worked in that similar type of way, and it has really helped me. Of course, in terms of application is important. And one important aspect which the institute should maybe focus on, that if I'm working in terms of research, is it being incorporated into teaching? Because that is again important, because both are not independent activities. Is my research contributing back into my teaching? How much of my research is getting back into teaching? If I'm able to build up locally relevant and specific type of frameworks, it can get back into your teaching. And that is going to be important. It can get back into your executive education. And Dr. Rosalina was talking about incentives and all. I'm just adding maybe recognizing locally relevant research may also be something that we may have to, maybe the institute could also look at. So broadly, if I'm just trying to put certain of my thoughts in terms of all of you who are now entering or would have been working towards some of these topics, or in future you'll be looking at in terms of research. Just maybe if you feel that there is something that you can do, how it can help, I think that would be something which is going to be good. But there is a constraint. One of the major constraints is that some of the top journals emphasize on scientific rigor rather than relevance. This is a constraint, absolutely. I don't deny that. If I need, fine. I'm not saying that you should not focus on scientific rigor and publish in top class journals, because some of these top class journals which are emphasizing on scientific rigor, if I do something which is a locally relevant type of research, it may be desk rejected. So from my point of view, from my academic growth or other things, some of this may be an issue which is there, but because again, this is something which has been developed or some change which is also going to be there. So one side I have to contribute to maintain my, in terms of research standing, which is there in publications and other things. But parallelly, can I also do something which is going to be meaningful to the society and contribute to the future also? So as an institute, what we could look at is in terms of, can there be certain emphasis, categorized journals which are having an emphasis on relevance to practice? So can we identify and give certain amount of weightage and importance to this also? Of course, there is a bias in the next point about Indian academic journals, which emphasize on relevance and rigor, but fine, depending on whichever context we are there, we can look at in terms of journals which have looking at both relevance and rigor. And another important aspect is, as I said, that how is the research being implemented to the benefit of the organization? So broadly, what I was trying to look at is in terms of, can we really be, in a way, be motivated to work towards something which is going to be more context specific, locally relevant, and build up in terms of something which is going to be beneficial. So I'll just end up by giving a small context, which is of great concern for the future, and which requires cross-cultural, cross-disciplinary type of activity, research, and something which is going to be important for the global, for the globe as well as for the future generations. Oh, sorry, just before that. So as a university, as an institute, this can be also created as a whole framework, as a guiding principles for the department, doctoral program and all. So I'm just giving a sort of guidelines which are used in the Sydney Business School, where the discipline of strategy, innovation, and enterprises tries to bring together academia, business, government, and civil organization to catalyze the research, innovation, and strategy making for sustainable future. So they have certain goals and aspirations which are there to inspire and equip leaders to create and capture opportunities to design and implement innovative strategies in their organization, shape the evolution of innovative systems and all. So the whole point, what we are saying is, as an university also, we can have certain type of guiding principles where we are looking at in terms of, like, we talk about championing technology and social innovation, or partnering with social and indigenous enterprises, so that we are able to do something which is more context specific. So as a simple, as one example I just gave in terms of as a university framework which is there, or goals or whatever we can define it as. So now I'll just share a point which may be of importance and where I was just looking at or doing some amount of thinking and some work which is there. And recently when I was trying to build up in terms of the engineering curriculum, how the engineering curriculum should be looked at. And we are talking about that as a world, we are consuming more resources than what we are actually doing. Because a lot of our entire economy system is a linear economy, which is using more and more resources. So the research which we initiated with the engineering colleges to redesign the engineering to help build in a circular economy into the curriculum. So how easy or how difficult or what should be done to bring in a circular economy into the engineering system. And that was when I got interested in this overshoot day, which means after January 1st, within how many days am I using my country resources, which would be generated in the full year. Like if you look at Qatar, by February 9th, they will be using their entire resources which they will be generating in the year within, say, 40 days. That means the remaining 325 days, they are depending on what is the future. That means I'm cutting into the earth what the earth is not able to generate. So each country, if you look at the extent to which they're cutting into their existing resources more than what it can regenerate. And if you look at the world as a whole, in 2021, it fell on July 29th. That means already we are more than 100 and odd days where we have already consumed what is the future. Now, if you look at in terms of how many Earths would be required if we live like a particular type of country, or how many, like if you take India requires 2.5 Indias for what we are actually consuming. That means we are consuming more than what we can actually be looking at. So therefore, there is a need for us to do something to protect or ensure that we are not overusing our resources. So I'll just end with this, what we are talking about, which is something which is there, move the date. What are 5 areas which can be looked at for improving the sustainability? So there could be a lot of topics which may be there under the planet, cities, energy, food, and population. So can we try to see some, and all of them would be multidisciplinary type of topics. So can we do something and do benefit in terms of this? So this is some of my thoughts which are there. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I hope some of you would be able to contribute towards this. Thank you very much.
I thank you, sir, for your insightful lecture. We end this plenary session with a note of thanks to our eminent speakers, Dr. Rosalina Sophie and Dr. P. Gopal, for making themselves available even in their busy schedule. We thank you once again, sir, and we are grateful you could make time for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're going to have the valedictory session.
So we can leave?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you. Nice meeting you, Dr. Venu.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hoping interact in future more. So for the time being, I think because we'll just start the valedictory session after this. Thank you so much once again.
Okay, thank you very much and all the best. Bye.
So, Dr. Seal, are you in LA right now?
Yes, I am.
Well, that would be, this is like 4:30 in the morning, right?
It is, yeah, it is 4:35 in the morning.
Oh, that's something. So I'm on the East Coast. So it's 7:35 here. But,
Not too bad. Not too bad.
not too bad, yes.
Where in the East Coast?
I teach at Ohio University. So,
Okay.
but my wife teaches at a university in West Virginia. So we live in Huntington, West Virginia. So it's on the border of Ohio and West Virginia.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah, it's somewhat a little more palatable, I guess, for you.
Yes.
It's okay.
Yeah, but I think this is probably the only good time window they have. So
Yeah.
I think after the time change, the daylight time change, it will probably become a bit better or a bit worse.
A bit worse because it will be 13 and a half, yeah, as opposed to,
Yeah.
Worse,
Yeah, I do. I attend a lot of events in India, and so it's. But now, so earlier, actually, till 2 years ago, I would sometime attend events at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. That would be the noon sessions or late night, their late morning sessions. But now I've stopped doing that.
Yeah.
So, how are things in LA, Dr. Seal? I hear about these forest fires and stuff. Does the impact get to South California in some ways? Or?
No, Southern California, no. I mean, we're not that much affected, I mean, when it happens, of course, in our area, in LA and the surroundings. So we had our shares of fire in the last few years. But no, we're not that affected. Like the Dixie Fire, there's more of the Lake Tahoe and all of those areas. Those are very badly affected. But we are okay. But things are still, very dry, no rain. So we don't know why things are just going to start.
Because I have a student I have a PhD advisee who is now a professor in Utah. And he was telling me about forest fires in Utah. So I think the heat and the dry weather.
May I have the permission? May I request the dignitaries to come and take their seat on the desk?
We have started. Yeah, but even here, even in Ohio, it's very Ohio and West Virginia. It is not as cold as it usually would be. So generally we would get fall colors, and it gets very pretty in this region. So we would get fall colors early October, mid October, but now we are starting to see a bit of that. So I think no one would accept it in these regions, but it's probably some impact of global warming. So.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us at the valedictory session of the third Doctoral Colloquium organized by St. Xavier's University, Kolkata. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Reverend Father Dr. John Felix Raj, Professor Dr. Kala Singh, Professor of Information System and Business Analytics, Loyola Marymount University, Los Angeles, USA, Dr. Jatin Srivastav, Director, Institute of International Journalism, E.W. Scripps Schools of Ohio University, Dr. Neeraj Kumar, PhD Program Coordinator and Co-Chair of the Doctoral Colloquium, Dr. Shoma Shul, Professor, Xavier's Business School, respected deans, faculty members, university officers, staff, research scholars, students, parents, participants, and all the well-wishers to the valedictory session. In fact, I should say a very good morning to both our guests, because it's very early morning there. Thank you, sir, for joining us. The time has come to draw the curtain to our program as we come to the end of it. The last 2 days, we have had deep insights into several issues. We had scholars from local, national, and international levels enlightening us. Thank you all the presenters. May I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Reverend Father, Dr. John Felix Raj, to give the valedictory address. Father.
Professor Neeraj Kumar, PhD Coordinator and Co-Chair. Professor Shoma Shul, Fathers, Deans, Heads of the Department, and members of the faculty. It gives me great joy to join you this evening as we conclude the 2-day Doctoral Colloquium 2021. Yesterday morning, when we began this program, we had a number of resource people, and we have been having sessions with resource people, keynote speakers from across the fields. And I'm sure that our students, our scholars who have participated from other universities and colleges would have definitely benefited from the inputs, from the ideas, the thought process, from the discussion and deliberations. In a very appreciative mood that I'm very happy that for the 3rd time, St. Xavier's University PhD department has organized this 3rd colloquium. It's a journey in the intellectual world. Every academician is invited to contribute to the knowledge that we have, to add to the field of knowledge in different aspects of life. And I think that is our responsibility, not only as individuals, but also as an institution. The very motto of St. Xavier's University, nihil ultra, nothing beyond. There is a journey that is endless. It is a journey that takes us forward. It's a journey that is with the spirit of what we call greater and greater. And so many of us have benefited from this exercise. And I want this exercise to continue, because we don't stop here, the 2-day Doctoral Colloquium. The 2-day Doctoral Colloquium will take us now on a journey to reflect and discern and see what are the fields in which that I could begin my research and contribute to the field of knowledge that is already there. I want to thank all of you, the organizers, Professor Neeraj Kumar, Professor Shoma Shul, and the whole team, for taking up, of course, the hardship, the trouble to organize this colloquium. And I want to also thank, on behalf of St. Xavier's University, the keynote speakers, the resource persons, who of course share their ideas, thoughts, and reflections with us, who have enriched all the participants, especially the PhD scholars. I also want to thank the 2 keynote speakers for today's session. That is Dr. Seal and Dr. Jatin Srivastava. Though, of course, all the way from the United States, Loyola Marymount University and Ohio University. I'm happy that they have generously joined us, and it's in fact a blessing to the university and to all the participants, especially the PhD scholars, that you are with us at this valedictory function. We look forward to your reflections, ideas, and thoughts. Look forward that we will be definitely enriched by you. I want to once again thank the team, the scholars, the PhD coordinator, and the organizers for taking up this step to organize this doctoral colloquium. I'm sure the journey will continue. This university will definitely encourage more and more PhD scholars. We have 80 of them today, and I'm sure in a couple of years we should have 150, 200, 300, as I think Dr. Neeraj Kumar presented to me some time ago, that we would have even 500 PhD scholars in a couple of years. That is, of course, this definitely would be a mine of knowledge. And in this mine is that we will always find an academic journey that we have already undertaken. Thank you very much. God bless us, and God bless all of us, especially our PhD scholars. And I want to also congratulate the best paper presenters. I have about 8 of them here. Definitely we shall have the honoring session, but at the same time I want to take this opportunity on behalf of St. Xavier's University to congratulate these people who have worked hard and presented their papers, which have been selected as the best papers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father, for your motivating words. Surely the research scholars have gathered good enriching experiences from the doctoral colloquium. I now take this opportunity to invite and welcome our first keynote speaker, Professor Kala Singh. Professor Singh is a chair of the Department of Information System and Business Analytics and director of the Comparative Management System program at Loyola Marymount University. Professor Singh has been a member of the College of Business Administration faculty since 1990. Professor Singh is an active researcher with publications in many of the leading journals in his area. As a faculty and the director of the Comparative Management System program, Professor Singh has traveled to 40+ countries to conduct and guide research of multiple groups of MBA students on e-commerce and business use of the mobile phones. He has been honored with the Faculty of the Year MBA program at Loyola Marymount University. He is also recipient of an NSF grant and was awarded a Fulbright Research Scholar Award in 2010 for conducting research on business use of mobile phones by small and micro entrepreneurs in India. I would like to invite Professor Kala Singh to deliver his keynote address. So,
good morning, everybody. It's I think 4:49 in the morning in Los Angeles. Thank you again. Thank you all. And I want to thank you, all of the participants. I want to thank you, St. Xavier's University of Calcutta. And it's actually my distinct pleasure to be able to, or to be invited to be the keynote speaker at an institution where I was a student. I am an alumnus of St. Xavier's University. I attended the 11th and the 12th program long time back. But then again, it's really a great honor to be invited to be the guest speaker. Before I start, just a quick request. Is there any way to see the audience? Just to the organizer, is there any way to see the audience? Because otherwise it looks like that, I'm just...
Sir, the research scholars, and also we are doing it YouTube live, so it's getting streamed. So we have audience from the research scholars, the faculty members of the St. Xavier's University.
Yeah, but there is no way for me to see them through the camera, right?
Sir?
There is no way for me to see them because what I'm seeing in my Zoom is just the dais. I do not see the audience at all. I'm just trying to see that, if the audience is at all present. I mean, I know they're present. I mean, is it possible to see the audience at all?
Going online, so you will not be able to see the audience.
Okay. Anyways, forget it, so I'm just right now, as I said, that looks like that I'm just presenting to the dais itself. So as opposed to presenting to somebody else. But anyway, so as I said that good morning, and then it's really an honor. I also want to apologize for not being able to join yesterday. I was supposed to join the colloquium, but it was really very late at night for me, and I was just not feeling well, and as a result, I couldn't do that. I have been today. My speech is going to be about innovation and the management of innovation and technology. So let me share my screen, and I'm hoping that everybody will be okay. So the screen is not being able to share. So I guess that, I thought, would I be able to share the screen and share a presentation, or would it be... Would I be able to share my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was trying that and it says the host has disabled. So let me see. Okay, now I can see it.
Yes, sir. Now you can share your screen.
Okay, thank you so much. So let me just quickly share the screen. So management of innovation and technology. So in that, I'm going to talk about for about 10 or 15 minutes, mainly about innovation and the way I have understood innovation, the way I have experienced, I will say, innovation throughout my career for about 30 years. And before that, I worked in India for a little bit. Yes. I worked in India for a little bit. So, in my career, what are the innovations or what innovation meant?
Sir, sorry to disturb you. Sir,
No.
the screen is coming as black. You're not
Oh,
able to see anything.
okay. Let's try it again. So stop screen sharing. Cisco gets meeting.
So now it's coming.
Now it's good. Okay. Thank you. So thank you. So once again, as I was saying that now I'm going to talk about the innovation and what innovation meant for me, and then talk a little bit, I guess, about the organizational capabilities that are needed for effective management of innovation and technology. So what is innovation? Since it's a PhD colloquium program, I thought that, I will start with, of course, something that looks very, very impressive, right? Innovations can be described by these equations, So idea, improvement, impact, implementation, or if you look into the polynomial form, this is the innovation. And then we can go ahead and, start working the mathematics and then try to figure out what is innovation. Of course, I'm kidding. And I hope that, you understand that it's early in the morning. So I thought that, at least I will start with something impressive, though I have something very simple to actually say. So forget about this. This is just, a joke. Basically, the innovation is nothing but the 4 I's. So we oftentimes think about innovation and we think that it has to be something really, really new, something really, really fantastic. Otherwise, it's not going to be called innovative. But if you really start looking into it, the innovation is nothing but the idea, the improvement, the other I's, impact, and the implementation. So I'm going to talk very briefly about these 4 areas that kind of consist or will make up the innovation, and then talk very quickly about the organizational capabilities or the different kind of characteristics that might be needed to manage that. So let's start with the first one, idea. This is the innovation that I think most of the time, that's the common concept of innovation. You know, when we think about a new idea, when you think about a particular product, or we come up with something that's completely new that nobody has thought about before, and then of course that becomes very simple for everybody to grasp and think, oh, this is so brand new that this must be extremely innovative. Nobody has done this before. So this is the most common notion of the innovation. Oftentimes, such innovations are associated with research and development work that goes on in an organization. So it is after a long time of research, somebody who's very brilliant comes up with an idea, and then that particular idea, oftentimes in the form of a product, whether that product is actually a tangible product, or in this age of information systems and the digital transformation, sometimes this can be also be a service that's being offered. So that is considered to be the innovation. Let's take a very mundane example that I think we use every day, and that's the ATM. When the ATM Citibank first time introduced it, that was again a product where you can conduct all of your banking without going to a bank. And that became really the innovative way of providing the service, and as well as the product that provides the service. Usually, it is in the domain of the creative people who can think out of the box. And what happens is, oftentimes, common people like us, we get frustrated. That's because when you are not that creative, when you cannot think out of the box, because it's not always easy. Yes, you can be trained to some extent, but oftentimes the creative people, they think differently. They just have the ability to look at it from a different perspective altogether. So usually in the domain of the creative people, oftentimes these ideas are risky, and they may or may not mean success, so they may not succeed. So some of them can be brilliant, some of them actually have been tried out and have failed. So we know about a lot of the innovative ideas, but then if you start looking to the history of a lot of the failures that have happened, you'll realize that those were also innovative ideas, but they didn't really work out. So that means idea is not just enough for innovation. Often these are the driver of the disruptive innovation, meaning something that has not happened before, or something that completely changes the current paradigm. Just think what our the pandemic has done to the paradigm of education, the way we understood education, the way we understood the interactions of the students and all of the scholars. That completely changed through the technology, the mediation of the technology, the way we actually deliver and as well as consume education. This is the bad rep to the innovation. I say that, gives the bad rep to the innovation, meaning that this is what makes us scared when you think about innovation. This makes us think that, oh, it is almost impossible to be innovative. We have to be this special person. There are some examples of the innovation from the idea itself. For example, iPhone, Tesla. But at the same time, I'm going to put some names that are extremely innovative, but they have not been successful. I don't know how many of you have heard about Friendster. That's the one that started way before Facebook from MIT. And it was great. It was fantastic. It was almost Facebook-like, but then it didn't work out too well. That's because it was just way ahead of its time. Or between the VHS tape and then the DVD, there was another product that came to the market. It looked like the long playing big record, and it was the Laserdisc. But once again, so that was a great innovative idea, because that was the first digital way of capturing the movies, but that didn't work. Or if you think about the maglev train, the magnetic levitation, which is supposed to allow us to travel at a very, very high speed. But because of the expenses, because of the special track that has to be laid out, that has remained, maglev train has remained somewhat of a toy idea, and the implementation has been extremely limited in very few parts of the world. In Shanghai, they have the maglev train, and all it does is travels 31 kilometers from the city center to the airport. So that has become more of a tourist attraction as opposed to being any particular, I will say, useful form of transport. The second I is the improvement. And this is where I think the most impact can be felt. And this is where everybody can contribute. There are certain things that you need to do, of course, to be able to be innovative. But this improvement part, this is where the innovation, as again, we understand that the changes can be made in very innovative way. It can be very impactful to the organization, because instead of trying out something new that can be risky, you are looking at something that's already working and trying to make changes. It can leverage the existing expertise and the domain knowledge. Because sometimes, if you want to do any kind of innovation, you need to know that particular area. So if you are, just think about it. I think if somebody, is working in SpaceX, the probability of that particular person coming up with a new rocket technology is way higher than if that person was working on the automobile sector or working in Tesla, let's say, within the same company, right? SpaceX, under the same umbrella. But it's going to be very different, and probability of somebody coming from Tesla and going into SpaceX and then doing some innovation out there will be difficult. That's because it's the domain knowledge that's needed. On the other hand, if you are working and you already have the expertise and the domain knowledge, then you can start thinking about what are the ways of moving it forward or the changes that can be made. It is tied to the culture of continuous improvement, because it forces you to think what can be changed, what are the improvements that we can make. It provides a pathway to incremental innovation. Innovation doesn't have to be drastic. Innovation doesn't have to be disruptive. It can be incremental. And once again, organization can provide a certain infrastructure and culture to support that. It is achievable by common people, or as I said, for mere mortal like us. That's because when you start working at a place, you start gaining some expertise, you start seeing things, you start seeing how what I call the dominant logic can be challenged. But to be able to do that, one must be willing and able to challenge the dominant logic and look for ways to make changes. What do I mean by dominant logic? The dominant logic is, oh, this is the way things have been done out here. That's the dominant logic. Nobody knows. If you really ask that, who has actually coined this, who has created this rule, somebody will say, oh, it is coming from up above. And as you start traveling up above, you will realize that nobody actually knows that where it came from. It has become sudden, this dominant logic or the myth within the organization. And if you can start challenging that, then you will find out ways of breaking out of the shackle of the existing processes and creating something new. It thrives in a culture that encourages experimentations and tolerates failure. So to be able to create this improvement or the incremental innovation, once again, the organization has to create a culture that can encourage experimentation, new ways of doing things. Maybe, it will not be right the first time. Maybe it will not be really as fantastic as the person who is proposing it thought. But then overall, you will start seeing improvement, over a period of time, and changes will be made. And then again, it will not be the same thing where you have started. At least you have started a path of diversion. And the great thing about this is that this is not that much product oriented. It can be implemented in both products and, more importantly, in the processes, because oftentimes the product innovation can be copied very easily. Process innovation, on the other hand, is difficult. That's because each organizational structure and organizational culture creates its own unique processes, and that cannot be very easily imitated into other organizations. Then the impact. An innovation can sound fantastic, then innovation can really sound, what I will say, exciting. But if it doesn't have any kind of impact, then that innovation is useless. Okay. We can have what I will say, as you can see that in the maglev train, that was fantastic, but then, the implementation, the impact was just not there. I will give another example of, I think that this entire fiasco of this high-speed train project that's happening in the United States. And in California, we are trying to build the high-speed train, and it's going on, and billions of dollars are being, poured into there, the budgets are being revised, and yet I don't think that this is going to be really that successful. That's because if you really look at the impact of the proposed corridor, it is not going to be that much. I mean, people going from Fresno to, I mean, it's finally supposed to be till San Francisco, but from here to Fresno is the first track or the first leg. And I do not know how many people really have the urge to travel to Fresno. On the other hand, if they would have done it from going from Los Angeles to Las Vegas and back, I think that would have been way more impactful. That's because there is a lot of tourists. There are a lot of tourists and a lot of people that actually travel there. So impact analysis also can help staging the innovation itself. You can figure out that, okay, which part of the innovation is going to have the impact and to what extent. And as a result, you can decide how the resources are going to be distributed. Impact is a way of weed out the early failures. Once again, if you do the impact analysis, you can figure out that whether you should go ahead with or not. And then impact takes environmental elements and external stakeholders into account. So this is where you also start thinking not about just the innovation, just the process itself, but external stakeholders. Take a look at some of these, Apple Newton, that was a failure. We all talk about iPads and everything, but a long time back, Apple actually thought about this. The technology wasn't there. The impact wasn't that, it was not that useful at that point of time. That's because people were just not even getting used to the laptops. Even the laptops were not there. So it was a very foreign and new idea. AT&T video phone. AT&T thought about that and thought it's a great idea. And it was a resounding failure. That's because, once again, people were just getting used to the phone itself, and the impact just wasn't there. And yet today we take the video phone and the video call for granted. Tesla, on the other hand, when it looked at it at the right time, it came in and said, look, we're going to give you a car which is going to be zero emission, and this is going to be something that's going to be good for the future of the environment itself. And then that's kind of took off. Entity Docomo, Netflix streaming, if you really look at these, and again, so I'm talking about failures and success. Entity Docomo started the entire idea of the mobile phone being your friend. This is, they call it LSD, the lifestyle device. So, and this is again before the iPhone. And they came up with this, entire idea. That's because in Japan, it was extremely conducive to introduce such services. Netflix, when it realized that the internet speed is good enough to start supporting streaming, they switched from their DVD rental business into streaming and became super successful. So once again, and that's because, once again, they realized the environment and then realized that their DVD business is just going to multiply if they can start reaching everybody's home with the push of a button. And then finally, the implementation. No idea, doesn't matter how innovative, how fantastic it is. If it is just remains in the drawing board, then it is useless, right? So this is the proverbial proof in this is in the pudding. Brings out the practicality of the idea. So as you start thinking about it and start implementing, you realize what are the barriers that you have to go through or barriers that you have to overcome. It is the show me the money phase, right? So this is where the resources are going to come in. This is where the organization has to start committing its resources to see that whether it is going to work out or not. Collaboration across organization is often necessary. So this also forces to break down the organizational silos and start getting the expertise and help from multiple areas. It can be agile. So if it is something that's small idea but can have a huge impact, then one can start as a lean process, implement it, see what are the difficulties, fail early, find out, learn, and improve. Or it can be incremental implementation and you can get it. You can say, okay, you know what, we're going to do this phase one. And if we find out this to be satisfactory, then we'll let it pass this gate so that you don't end up committing too much of the organizational resources right at the outset. Some of the examples of that can be 3M, the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, which looks like a big, huge, giant manufacturing company, but they create the Post-it, the Scotch tapes that we know. An extremely innovative company. That's because they have a mandate, a certain percentage of their product every year has to be new or has some new feature. And that forces, once again, to start thinking about it. And then they implement it fast. Microsoft, again, they have an idea, they implement it. Yes, there are bugs. Yes, things do not work out really well. Yes, we have to download the patches, but they come to the market quickly, they learn quickly, and then they start making improvement to that. Tableau came into the market with a beautiful, beautiful visualization product, and Power BI tried to imitate them and came into the market. It is clunky. It was not really as friendly, but see what has happened. Over the years, Microsoft is catching up. It started creating Power BI almost like a free service, but with all of the bells and the whistles. And now suddenly that is becoming the industry standard. Tesla, it introduced a lot of the features. Some of them worked, some of them did not work. As I can tell you that, being a previous Tesla owner, that it's not always that fantastic experience that everybody thinks about Tesla. There are lots of little glitches here and there, but with every software updates, they actually improved it, and then they took care of it. The self-driving car, again, they experimented with it and improving it every day. And now it is becoming a fully self-driving car, right? And now they are working on the safety features. So it is the implementation. So when you start putting all of these eyes together, you get this idea of you get innovation. That's why the innovation was at the center. What are the organizational elements to support innovation? Again, these are the four, and I found this in this reference. It's the culture of the organization, capabilities. You should have people, you should have processes, you should have groups who will be able to start thinking outside the box or look for the improvement or challenge the dominant logic. Structures, and these are the supports, this is the admin, this is the breaking down the silos, having regular meetings, so those are the different kinds of things. And finally, it has to be related to the organizational strategy. That's because that provides the focus. What's the Apple strategy? Product oriented, single product, or maybe couple of products, but making improvements in that direction and that direction alone. But that strategy may not work for GE. That strategy may not work for Facebook. That strategy may not work for Google. So whatever is the strategy, based on that, you should start creating these other capabilities to foster innovation. Types of innovation, again, it's the same thing that's being shown from two different papers that I was reading. So you can think of the product and the processes in the dimensions of the new versus old, and then what is the problems that you are solving versus new versus the old. Clearly, the most impactful is the new and new, most innovative new products. But PC was in 1980, ATM I talked about, and the processes, barcodes for the inventory control, or the point of sales terminal, right? But again, those are new, those challenges the organization, those are resource oriented. You can do old product of the processes, but you can do new ways of doing it. For example, other uses for the paperclip or the DVDs, going from DVD to streaming, process testing solves with satellite imagery. I know that there was a student of mine who was actually into roofing business. They started inspecting the roofs when they got a call for any kind of request for proposal. They started inspecting the roof through Google Images first, and then provided some kind of estimates to the client instead of just going there. There are multiple stories I know I can tell, but I don't think that I have the time. And similarly, product and processes, if you think of the new product and the processes, and the problem is the old, once again, new solutions to an old problem. An example will be all of the medications that we are getting right now, or a new solutions to a new problem, right? If you look at the pandemic and look at, all of the vaccinations that we got, that's in record time. We ended up creating that. In the process, you can think about just in time. In the process, we can think about the changes that we have made to the educational experience when the pandemic hit, and we had to do it pretty much, overnight. Quickly, how to manage innovation. Casting a wide net while keeping the potential changes in the firm, the competition, etc. is crucial. Think about different areas. Kodak Eastman, that's we talk about, it's the Kodak moment, right? The photography and the company is intertwined. It has become synonymous, and yet that particular company could not sustain itself when the digital imaging hit the market, that's because they did not cast their net to capture this new technology and the capabilities. Creating newness with existing product can expand the portfolio, right? So, and once again, I'm just going to read from some of these quickly. 3M has done this with all kinds of tapes and all of their products, right? Creating a culture open to newness, once again. And I know I'm almost out of time, so I'll be done. Communicating with knowledge throughout the firm is very, very important, and changing with courage. So finally, in conclusion, innovation is not one thing, it's the culmination of the synergy. We are all innovative. We should have that belief in ourselves. Never settle for the dominant logic. Organizations must collect and nurture different kinds of talent, and there should be a tolerance for failure for a long-term gain. With that, thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your enlightening presentation and informative speech. And also a big thank for joining us. We understand it's very early there. In spite of that, you have been kind enough to accept our invitation and give us such a motivating speech. We are really privileged and very thankful to you. Moving ahead, may I now introduce our next keynote speaker, Dr. Jatin Srivastava. Dr. Jatin Srivastava is an Associate Professor and Director of the Institute for International Journalism at E.W. Scripps Schools of Journalism at Ohio University. His recent research is rooted in theory-based exploration of the new media environment, and his teaching experience ranges from graduate seminars in mass communication theory and research methods to undergraduate courses on graphic design and media literacy. I would now like to invite Dr. Srivastava to deliver his address. Sir.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank the administration and the team at St. Xavier's University, Kolkata, for inviting me, and my deepest regards to all the academic community present there, to the father, to Dr. Seal, and everyone else who is there who I can't see. Thank you for being there, and thank you for listening to us. It's a great pleasure to be here. So today I want to talk about, so I do this, a lot of my work is on media technology. Okay? And I want to talk about kind of continuing, in the same direction as Dr. Seal, about the relationships between technology or technology products as we see them and our societies. There is this idea when in social sciences, or at least in media research, of technological determinism, right? The idea that technology doesn't determine the society, right? It's more complex interactions. So like Dr. Seal was saying, that there were a lot of technological innovations, but not all of them succeed, right? So the society interacts with them. Sometimes they find, societies find some ideas useful and they use them. Sometimes there's, it's just not the right time for the idea. I remember, it's a long time since then, but I remember when Maggie was launched. And I think it's, India is like, Maggie has become a ubiquitous product in India. And I think one of the biggest indicators of being an Indian, actually. I've met people from different parts of India, as I have spent more time in India and outside India. And, and I find that Maggie becomes, a very common theme often. Now, I remember when Maggie was introduced, it was when I was very young. I think it was early 80s or mid 80s sometimes. And in the initial times, it was very difficult for Maggie to get accepted in the Indian society. People would would criticize it. I remember my dad and some of my uncles, they're getting together, cooking Maggie and everything, and essentially saying that it looks like worms and that kind of stuff. Okay, and then there was a long time when Maggie was so they had a lot of flavors, if you remember, or if those who were there in 80s remember. So they had a lot of flavors. They would give different kind of gifts. So they would give sketch pens, they would give bowls, sometimes toys, all kind of stuff, right? So, but now you look at Maggie. So there has been a process of adoption. So yes, there was this new product that got in, but society also innovated and created new behaviors. Now you can talk to people and you can find 15 ways of eating Maggie. You go to hills, and so let's say in North India, if you go to Uttarakhand and those kind of regions, and you will find that Maggie and paratha is one of the very common, breakfast, probably more common than a lot of other local food. So essentially, society took an innovation or a product and then innovated it in their own image, according to their own needs. And a lot of times, when we focus on innovation on the product side, and remember, we are a very technocratic society to a large extent. I come from a community where almost every person is an engineer, right? We value engineers, we value technology and a lot of that stuff. Okay? So, but a lot of times we don't think that much about human side. And there has always been this idea of human innovation. And I think it's very important to focus on that and understand that. Because in the last 20 to 30 years, or the time of my adulthood, I would say, I have seen that that social innovations have actually defined the nature of technological innovations in a lot of instances. So, for example, and remember, the challenge with innovations is always that you really don't know what is going to come or exactly what is going to come. Okay? And then you would ask, all right, so if we don't know how a product is going to come or how a technology is going to come, how do we know what to study or what to think about? And that's a very valid question. Okay? So let me talk about some media innovations. I come from media research and the field of communication. So if you look at last 20, 30 years, I believe that communication technology has been one of the central drivers of innovation, right? So from your social media and stuff to your smartphones to internet, and we are coming to a stage where the next step we are looking at is your self-driven cars, which would be essentially very advanced communication devices with a layer of artificial intelligence, right? You would be looking at washing machines, which would be more intelligent. You would be looking at refrigerators. So essentially, the Internet of Things world. You are thinking about refrigerators which would actually be able to order food, that you are running out of. So those kind of conversations I hear a lot, and and remember, I believe that that now there's not much gap between United States and India, and especially India, in terms of the technology gap. I remember that when I was young, and people would be very excited about imported stuff. In 80s they would say, all right, so we are getting this imported radio, or this imported transistor, or this imported torch, and there was a pretty big gap. I remember my house, in my home, they got television in 84, 85, somewhere around that time. It was a portable television. And I thought that was like, for a very long time, I thought that was the time when, when television actually became popular across the world. And then I start teaching media history, and I realized that in the United States, people were watching television very, very commonly since 50s. Color television was a very common thing much earlier than black and white television was very common in India. So, but now, I see that technology kind of moves, together in a lot of cases in India and United States. A lot of innovations, which you see in India happening, especially with mobile phones, you find much later in United States. India is also the test market, and for that matter, many developing countries are the test markets for many products. Okay? So with that, a lot of times the way we are thinking about technology and how it's going to connect to society in United States, we can have the same conversations in India. And remember, right now, a lot of conversations they are having about social media, Facebook, or Twitter, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, advertising, all those, big conversations. They are happening in the United States, but they are also happening in India, right? So essentially the idea I wanted to focus on was that, number one, the conversations, the things I'm talking about are going to happen in India very soon, because they are going to probably happen in US very soon. So there's not much difference. So so this is not the time when we say, oh, well, it's happening in US, so it will probably get to us in 2030. No. If it's happening in US, it's probably already happening here in India too, or there in India too. Okay, and the second thing is that there is the human side, and human side has to be focused upon. Human innovation has to be focused upon and understood also, as well as the technological side. And remember, the technology side is mostly concentrated within organizations and institutions. But human side is a lot of times concentrated among people and among societies. Okay? If you think about media innovations, in 2011-12, when there was the Arab Spring, so remember there were these revolutions in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, and Facebook and Twitter. Social media was a big, was seen as a big platform for that. So in United States, people would actually, I've heard people talk about, United States being a pioneer of democracy in that way. So they were saying, see, American technology is bringing change, and it's spreading democracy and democratic sentiments and all those discussions. But now, around 10 years later, we are talking about how this, remember the same thing. Facebook was spreading information very fast, faster than what governments could control at that time. Now it's the same thing, but now we are considering it a threat to democracy, right? So we don't say that, there is this increasing talk about disinformation, misinformation spreading really fast across the world, and it's getting really hard to control it. And it's an American innovation that's doing it. It's the same innovation. It's the same innovation. It's just how people have decided to use it, or how ways or strategies of using it have evolved. So again, the idea of understanding the human side, the human practices is very, very important. Remember, who could think that Twitter would have these these bots which would make topics trend, even if people didn't care much about it? Who could think about issues about controversies like Cambridge Analytica? And remember, Cambridge Analytica was not only United States. There were a lot of elections across the world, which they claim to have impacted. So so controversies like Cambridge Analytica, where an innocuous or perfectly harmless looking innovation like Facebook, where people just come and talk to each other, might be seen as threatening to fair practice of democracies. Okay. So again, so those kind of challenges are there. And so essentially, if you don't understand the human side, if you don't understand how these innovations can also be abused, then you are going to face problems. And we are getting into a future where we are going to have a lot of technology around us. And we will really not understand how most of that technology works. I remember my father, he had a 1983 Premier Padmini. So that was what Fiat was called, right? And he was able to open the bonnet and, the hood and look at different parts of the engines and everything. Now the modern cars, the car I have, I don't know how to do anything in that car. I can open the bonnet, I can fill the, the cleaner fluid, but that's pretty much it. So we are going to live in a more technologically sophisticated environment without knowing much or without being able to change much. So then the question is, and this is the final thing I'm going to talk about. So how do you know about it? How do you think about it? If you are a researcher, do you wait for innovation to happen and then you work on it? I believe that most innovations since very early, since the start of humankind, a lot of times they have influenced societies on some dimensions which we care about, so especially with the modern technology. And we can think about those. So for example, dimensions about the nature of information, right? So if we say, remember, this was the same question people were asking when television and radio or the penny press or the newspaper started. What is truth? What kind of reality is being presented to the people? We are asking the same question right now, when we are talking about disinformation, misinformation. And I believe that 40 years from now or 50 years from now, when I'm gone, and hopefully the earth still is here, and many of you are still there, people will be probably looking at a lot of artificial intelligence, and they would, I believe, would be asking the question, what kind of stories artificial intelligence is telling us? What kind of information it prioritizes? What kind of information it does not? How does it understand what information is important? So one thing, nature of information. Our world is going to be increasingly mediated. Everything you will do, almost everything, will have a technology interface, conscious, which you would be aware of or even not aware of. Okay? So that part will be there. The second would be freedom of expression. Would you rather live in a society where you own, let's say, a Mercedes and you cannot go out, or whether you probably own a bicycle but you can go out and do everything you want? So it's not only the nature of the product, it's also the nature of the society that is important. I would live in a society where where I don't have a Mercedes, and I really don't care about Mercedes, but I can say things I want to say, I can walk around, I can do things, I have privacy. So a lot of these fundamental liberties, nature of information, fundamental of freedom of expression, privacy, security, so those kind of things. And we can think about future technology on those dimensions. When we are thinking about artificial intelligence, we can think about that. Is it going to be secure? Is it going to be private? If it's going to use a lot of your information and customize your experience, what's going to happen with that data? Remember, that's the same thing that's the same issue we are having with WhatsApp right now. Where a lot of people are asking, all right, so the information is encrypted and the governments cannot have access to it. But some people can have access to it. What are they doing with it? And the governments are saying, It's our people, and you can have access to their information, but we can't. How is it fair? So those kind of questions are going to be there, to be very common in future. So essentially, questions about privacy, questions about expression, questions about nature of information, what kind of reality we are seeing, through the mediated platforms. I think those are going to be very important, and we have to ask them, even if we don't understand the technology completely, right? Because that's the human side. And, and as always, it's important to understand how a technology, not only how a technology will be used, but also how it will be misused. So yes, it's good to be excited about the great things, but it's also very important to be prepared about the bad that will come with most technologies. So with that, I'll stop here. Thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In fact, I do understand it's very early morning for you as well. But in spite of that, we are really happy that you accepted our invitation and delivered such a wonderful speech. Thank you so much. This 2-day long doctoral colloquium has been divided into 8 tracks. In each of the tracks, the participants presented their research work in presence of eminent academicians. Experienced academicians present in different tracks judged the submission and printed the best paper. May I now request Professor Neeraj Kumar, PhD Program Coordinator and Co-Chair, to give epilogue of the doctoral colloquium and also to announce the best papers for the 8 tracks. So,
very good morning to my fellow colleagues from USA. I know it's early morning and we are very delighted that you are part of our colloquium and we feel privileged to have both of you. I'm here to give an epilogue framework. Those of my faculty friends who are from English literature, they know epilogue stands for some kind of a gist or annex C, which is there to conclude a text or try to summarize the whole situation as such. I won't take much time, but just to reiterate upon that this doctoral colloquium divided into 8 tracks, and the tracks based on the emerging areas which has relevance to practice as well, had an overwhelming response, and more than 50 research scholars they participated in this event as such. And if you look at the doctoral colloquium, I will just go through some of the surveys done at international universities with respect to doctoral colloquium. So I'm just trying to understand what are the activities which people do in doctoral colloquium. So 5% says we present the research design, okay? 20% says we will talk about the empirical part of the research work. 50% will say we'll try to talk about testing my research or trying to look at the research validation. And then remaining percentage will talk about what are the stoppers of my research? What are the loggerheads in my research? How can I bridge the gaps? So this is where Doctoral Colloquium moved in. We have just started. This is the 3rd Doctoral Colloquium, and I know the first batch of scholars are just ready to move in terms of sharing the research design as such. Okay, and subsequently, when we have the Doctoral Colloquium, they will be in a position to share with us more of research work, and finally, the doctoral colloquium will land up into dissertation colloquium, which in India we traditionally look at pre-thesis submission seminar as such. So the journey of early doctoral colloquium to dissertation colloquium is where we are looking at. I'm happy to look at the diversified representation of the research paper as such, and I'm here and I feel privileged to announce the names of the best papers for each track. Sustainable development, the best paper presentation is Srija Bhakta from St. James University, Kolkata. The title of paper is very fascinating one, COVID-19 and Emergence of New Poor in India. The second track, which is Management of Innovation and Technology, Thumur Datta Gupta is the paper presentation who has been adjusted the best paper awardee from St. James University, Kolkata. And the title is Political Election in India, Battle on Digital Space, a Critical Analysis. Track number 3, Wellness, Health and Hospitality. We have a tie there. In fact, tie is between one of the research scholars outside St. James University, Kolkata, who is from Indian Institute of Engineering Science and Technology, Shibpur, Sayan Das, and one of our young faculty who is a researcher with University of Calcutta. Sayan Das' work is on reliable primary healthcare system through information uncertainty management, and Paramita's paper is about gender variations in HIV-related stigma among Indian adults. Track number 4, Emerging Markets, Trends of 21st Century. Arjun Dangle is the best paper awardee from St. James University, Kolkata. The title of the paper is Factors Influencing Consumer Trust on Using Online Retail Platforms. Next track is The New Age of Indian Cinema. The best paper awardee is Arithrik Datta Chaudhary from Xavier's University, Kolkata. Title is Unleashing the Darkness, Reinterpreting the Use of Myths, Illusions and Symbols in the web series Quote Unquote Dark. Next track is Management and Business, India's Tough Part. The winner for the best part paper is Shrestha Chakravarti from Xavier's University, Kolkata. Study on interrelationship between psychological well-being and job crafting. This is how has been the aftermath of the pandemic as such. Next track is Management and Business, India's Soft Power. Awardee is Srestha Chakravarti, which in fact I've already shared with you. Next track is Women in Society, Social Issues and Public Policies. Sutadripa Datta Chaudhary from Xavier's, Kolkata. The topic is Feminism of Current Matters. And finally, we have the last track, which is FinTech, Green Finance and Financial Inclusion. Shaida Iram is the best paper awardee from St. James, Kolkata. And the topic is Behavioral Approach to Asset Pricing, a review, which boils down to behavioral finance as such. So, congratulations to all the best paper awardees. I hope this will serve as motivation for the young researchers, and it also serves as motivation for us as faculty, because the faculty's motivation is deep rooted in the motivation of the scholars as such. In fact, the other day we were talking about research, innovation and practice. The latest buzz in research and innovation is let the research be value driven or let the research be innovation driven. Because on the one side you have the concept of value creation, and on the other side you have the proposition of innovation. So experts have technically now combined the two things. They say, let the research be value innovation driven. So with this note only, I end up for today as such. All the best for the young researchers and the researchers like us who also feel young in the company of young researchers. All the best. And I sincerely thank the two keynote speakers, Dr. Srivastava and Dr. C. We look forward to have more of, associations. Have a nice day, and maybe you can have some rest for today. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to all the winners. You will be receiving a certificate and voucher from the university, with which you can buy books of your choice and contribute more in the field of research. All the paper presenters will be receiving certificates soon. This doctoral colloquium, organized by St. Xavier's University, was made possible by many hands, hearts, and minds working together. To express words of appreciation and gratitude, may I now request Dr. Shoma Shur, Professor Xavier Business School, and a member of the organizing committee to propose the vote of thanks. Ma'am.
Thank you, Manali. Respected Vice Chancellor, respected keynote speakers, deans, officers, my esteemed colleagues, and my dear students, the PhD scholars. It's a great pleasure and privilege for me to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion, which is a very special occasion to all of us. On the lighter note, the announcement of vote of thanks actually brings a sense of relief to all of us, a relief that the program has come to an end successfully. And I promise that I will not take long and I'll make it short. Nevertheless, I think it's not just a custom only, but it is very important to recognize with gratitude the efforts of all who made this program a success. Right at the beginning, I would like to recognize with gratitude the support of all the members of our Xavier family for giving shape to this 2-day Doctor's Colloquium of St. Xavier's University, Kolkata. I would humbly like to thank all the experts and resource persons who participated in this colloquium, not only from our country, but also abroad, for giving us support and time from their busy schedule. A special thanks to today's keynote speakers, Professor K.C. Loyola Marymount University, and Professor Doctor Srivastava, Ohio University, for joining us at such odd times and enriching us with their ideas. I would also recognize with gratitude the support of other keynote speakers of the inaugural session, Padma Shri Dr. Chandi, Director, Tata Medical Center, Kolkata, and Dr. Joy Sri Roy, Wangabundu Chair Professor, Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand. I express my gratitude to the two other keynote speakers for the plenary session, Professor P. Venugopal, who is Professor of Marketing, XLRI, and Dr. Rosalina Ahmed Swafi, who is Professor of University of Malaysia. I further thank all the chair professors of the 8 tracks, Dr. Joyce Pirai, and along with her, we have Dr. Vachin Chakraborty, Professor and Director of Institute of Developmental Studies, Kolkata, Dr. Seema Biswas, who is a surgeon and Chief Editor of British Medical Journal of Case Studies, Dr. Vikwankar Nag, Dean, Research and International Relations, IIM Kolkata, Dr. Anita Goel, Professor of IIM Lucknow, Dr. Sujit Mukherjee, Professor, School of Management and Account, Dr. Manu Samna, Professor and Head, Department of HRM, IST Shipur. Dr. Obijit Roy, Professor, Jalapur University. Mr. Ashok Vishwanathan, Dean, SFTI, Kolkata. Dr. Sucheta Bhattacharya, Professor, Jalapur University. Dr. Sumati Rai, Professor, ISWP and Calcutta University. Dr. Moshe Mipati, Associate Professor, Human Resource Management at Siam University, Bhubaneswar. And Dr. Anand Mohan Pal, Professor of the University of Calcutta. I'm grateful to them all, not only for spending such a lot of time on a weekend, that Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning, but also for their valuable inputs and feedback that they have given to the scholars, which will benefit the scholars for their journey of research. I have now audacity to thank our very own Father Vice Chancellor, Reverend Dr. John Felix Raj, as he has been our constant inspiration and support. Without his guidance and motivation, the research activities of such a young university as ours would not have ever reached this level. Thank you, Father, for helping us to think differently and innovatively. My sincere thanks to all the fathers present here, all the faculty members, the university officers, and the support staff. I would be failing in my duty if I do not express my sincere gratitude to all those who have contributed enormously and directly to organize this Doctor's Colloquium, especially the organizing committee members, the office assistants, and of course, our PhD coordinator. Lastly, most of all, my thanks goes to all the participants, the presenters, and the research scholars for whom this program is being organized, and without whose wholehearted participation, this program would not be a success. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. At St. Xavier's University, we are committed to the entire fraternity to continue contributing in the field of research. We are and keep on organizing such proceedings related to research activities with innovative ideas periodically to nourish our mind and champion the cause of global knowledge sharing. Thank you. Thank you very much.